So staying in the, we'll call it the bipolar category, we've gone from, of course, Sophie's Choice.
Talking about Robert Sean Leonard and Dead Poet Society. Now this takes a little bit of unpacking because I just was resistant to this film from the get-go as a kid because I just couldn't get on board with Robin Williams. I think Robin Williams is an amazing actor. He's been incredible in things like, Good Will Hunting, A 1 Hour Photo, and many different things.
I think one of Robin Williams' best moments on camera ever. Dead Poet Society, directed by Peter Weir.
I just never bought into that whole Mark and Mindy stuff and the gimmickry and just the mugging, and a little bit of him goes a really long way for me. So I was just so resistant to that film because they were selling it that way. He really is not. I think you hear that thing all. They didn't market it properly. I think obviously they're trying to get people in the theater because of Robin Williams, but I think if they had gone a little different route, I think it might have even been a bigger hit than it was. But I did not see that film for many years. I bits and pieces here and there, knew the basic story about the young kids at the boarding school, but didn't know much about it, right? So fast forward to, I'm well into my film career. It's about 10 years ago or so. I'm up late watching, it's one of the pay, the lower end Epics or one of these channels that comes with this, lower end DirecTV package. And I'm watching this scene, and it's Robert Sean Leonard. Don't know the context or anything that's going on, but he's in his room alone. It's lit a certain way, and he has this little crown, a kind of halo around his head, of kind of like, thorns or whatever, and it's from like Twelfth Night or some Shakespeare thing, and he's reciting the poetry. And in the way that he is delivering the lines, in the way that it's lit, in the way it's basically foreshadowing. You can tell this kid's gonna fucking kill himself. Like, that's in the subtext of the scene. I remember I'd never seen the film before starting. I knew vaguely of it, but I don't really know what's going on. But I do know this kid's gonna kill himself. Next scene, he goes downstairs, he goes into this study, he pulls out a handgun and he shoots himself in the head. I gotta see this film, right? And Kurtwood Smith, actually, I met him at an event once, give the man a hand. There was a chair in his way, and I said, give the man a hand, from RoboCop, of course. Great actor, he loved that. Another tremendous, he gives an unbelievable performance as Robert Sean Leonard's dad. You really understand his point of view, too, even though he's just obviously kind of indirectly killed his own kid. But, when you see the film, a running thing, and Robert Sean Leonard portrays this so brilliantly. He portrays this kid, obviously, as kind of bipolar, shifting back and forth in scenes and condensing it, but you can see there's something going on with him. And basically, when you watch the whole film, what happens is there's this tension. He wants to be an actor. He really wants to pursue that. That's his passion. His dad wants him to be something more practical, an engineer, because his dad's very working class, and putting him in this expensive boarding school and expecting, results. He doesn't want to hear about jerking off about, theater or whatever. And it's a problem, and he brings it to Robin Williams. And Robin Williams is like, listen, man, follow your passion, and encourages him, as he probably should, The fact of the matter is, I should correct that. He didn't give appropriate advice. His character really should have probably stayed out of it. Should have tried to just maintain an even keel and just say, hey, look, he didn't really understand how maniacal the father was and how serious it was. And he probably told him to do something he shouldn't have done, okay? When they're after the performance, when it's clear the father has lost his shit, and, there's that great shot of Robert Sean Leonard, and it's almost like he's in, jail in that car, and it's a portent of what's to come. He has a moment, and I think it's Robin Williams' greatest moment on camera ever. Ever. He tells the other guys who are kind of saying, Mr. So-and-so, he's like, listen, don't make it worse. And then he has the moment, his best bit of screen acting ever, I think, ever. He does nothing. He's completely still.
and the camera just kind of holds on him, and it comes across very clearly that he knows he made a fucking huge mistake, right? He made a huge mistake. And that scene's so powerful because he does nothing. Nothing. And he's reciting, he's alone in his room after, and he's reciting that. And, obviously at this point when I see the whole film, within context, I obviously know what's going to happen. But it's, as I say, I saw it out of context, and yet still that was in the scene. And it's amazing because it's very funny. He's had a great career. Robin Sean Leonard has had a great career. Acted in a Scorsese film and done many, many, many things, including that great HBO thing with Glenn Close as his mom, where he's dying of AIDS. But you would think from that film, his roommate, his co-star in that film is Ethan Hawke, and he's blowing Ethan Hawke off the screen. And it's kind of interesting because there's a story. Ethan Hawke did Buried Child at Steppenwolf in the mid-'90s when I was in Chicago. And I was working with an actor friend who had a lot of connections there, a lot of people who knew him. And there was a story that kind of emerged that was very interesting. That on Dead Poets Society, all the young actors, Ethan Hawke, they all had a unit publicist. They all had the studio as a publicist. But apparently, Ethan Hawke was the only one whose parents he invested in their own publicist. Interesting. Ended up having the biggest career out of anybody. Into today, the whole Instagram thing, the followers, the social media. I look around, there's a woman that I worked with for a while, in catering, who's certainly attractive, thin, nice, shapely, whatever, but nothing tremendous or anything, has 10,000 followers. I've been on the front page of Variety. I'm in the Writers Guild. I've had my film on Martin Scorsese's Casino. I've been in over 100 film festivals. Someone barely eke out 1,000 followers. Now, I guess she is, you can see where she's paying for some of this because she only has X amount of likes off the 10,000 followers. And then you can see where certain posts have 800 likes, which is paying for that. But that's not the point, that we're in this ridiculous kind of situation. You could see the seeds of that with the whole, publicist thing for Ethan Hawke, so on and so forth. Josh Charles was in that cat, and there was a couple other young actors. There's the redheaded kid, Dylan, somebody who has there's several guys who've had, really good careers. One who became kind of an executive. He gave a tremendous performance. There's many great performances in it, but Robin Sean Leonard is unfucking believable. The truth is, Robin Sean Leonard is just blowing Ethan Hawke off the screen, and to do that at that age with so much gravitas and so much weight, and being able to foreshadow a scene like that, it's unbelievable. Speaking of Ethan Hawke, he tells a great story. I believe it was he that told the story about Peter Weir doing a kind of special screening of Master and Commander, and that the studio put together a brilliant kind of refurbished the negative or whatever. It's not that, film's not that old. I think it's 2004, but they did kind of, a real nice re-release of some sort, something to that effect. Peter Weir, the director, was just, really thrilled, and then said, loved the screening and loved how it looked and loved all this stuff. It's really great. The problem is no one will care. It's like the film is over, and you can just see it in so many ways. Social media had a lot to do with it, the kind of films that we're making. There are just so many things. And I guess that's why I'm doing some of these video essays, to just kind of keep that thing alive as best as possible.